This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Colbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to another episode of Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Colbert, and I am thrilled to introduce today's guest. We've worked side by side for over 10 years now, and I'm happy to say we've also been friends for over 10 years now, which is really cool in business. He's a seasoned professional with over 18 years of experience in facilities management. He brings a wealth of knowledge from the fast-paced biotechnology sector. His expertise spans verification and validation, good laboratory practice, medical devices, change control. He's currently the Associate Director of Facilities of Operations at Alnylam Pharmaceuticals. And Dan O'Connell, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for taking the time and joining us. So Dan, clearly we've known each other over 10 years. I respect you for the roles you've had and what I've learned from you. And one of the biggest questions that comes to mind for me is, what's been your biggest lesson learned as a facility manager or a facility leader?
So I think, as we've talked many times before in a couple of different forums, is the people and the team that you have as your core support for, getting all of the jobs done that you need to get done. Can't be possible without them. So it's by far the number one aspect to your success is your people.
That definitely resonates. And I see you do that through your leadership and your teams. Can you give any, say, best practices? Like, how do you actually make that happen, and how do you make it how does it grow? How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I think, obviously you got to find the right people, right? The right people that are willing to learn and absorb all the different aspects of the job. Everybody thinks of like a facilities mechanic. Oh, yeah, go turn wrenches. Well, in the pharmaceutical world, it's not just go turn wrenches. You got to worry about, the parts that you're putting in. It has to be like for like. It can't be, it can be like in kind, but you got to have, protocols that make sure that it can do the job that it says it does. You've got to be able to fill out all the paperwork, because if you don't document it, it wasn't done, right? Things like that. So you got to have the right people with the willingness to learn and to do what they need to do, and then invest in them, right? To teach them. And to teach them is not always an easy task. And sometimes it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, depending on what profession or what focus they have. And how long it takes to get them up to speed.
Makes a lot of sense. If you told me a story, I think it was last week maybe, and about Nico and the age that you started working with him. I mean, and like, do you mind sharing that? I think it's a really compelling story about it's a real success story.
Yeah. Yep. So Nico came to us. I think he was 17 or 18 at the time. Started off in the lab services group, and really showed a desire to learn and excel. Actually, if you talk to him, it's probably more of a competition to be better than the other people that are on the floor around him.
Love it.
But he took that, he ran with it, he learned everything he could, and went from, say 18-year-old, lab services technician to, facilities operation manager, 7 years later. That's like you said, a true success and dedication to what you're doing, learning, making things better, soaking all aspects of the job.
How much of it is, in your opinion, or your experience, I should say, one person's motivation to grow versus the environment that they're in? Is it both? Is it more one than the other?
I think it all depends. It all depends on the people, right?
Hmm.
So, obviously the world needs the people who are very, very happy doing their job. You get that quite a bit in the trades, right? I'm very happy being an electrician. I want to be an electrician. I don't want to manage people. I don't want to, go down that track. Um, and I want to do my job, and then I want
Hmm.
to go home.
Hmm.
So with those people, it's keeping them interested in what they're doing, and keeping the tracks wide and overreaching, right? But then there's other people that do want to go into, say, other aspects, some other activities within the pharmaceutical world, whether it's calibration, whether it's, management, whether it's, some other track, validation, commissioning, change
Hmm.
jobs to, say CAI or something like that, Um, but for us, I mean, it's, when we find somebody, we have another success story over here. Diana Alonso, she came to us right out of college. She had been hired in Dens and came to us in our lab services team. And then she started in the buffer team, and she took the buffer team and became a lead Dens contractor with us, and basically developed the buffer team. So they make buffers, they build the recipes, they do it on a large scale and a small scale. Um, Made all of the SOPs, did all the verifications, started up the new reagent distribution system with the buffer side of the house, did all of that, and now she's a full-time Alnylam buffer lead, you know, and has literally taken over that whole department, and she does a wonderful job. So she had the desire. I think what you're talking about there is that the the environment that you're in offered that availability, right? And then
Yes.
she had the desire to actually take that on and grow with that, teach her own self while all the time, getting everything step by step process mapped out, developed all the different procedures, and then trained all the other six techs that she
Hmm.
has under her purview now, and now we're making buffer for all of 675 and 300 labs.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great
So,
story.
you know,
That's fantastic.
so, it's both the environmental aspect of things and the desire to be that better, person, that track that she wants to go down that management route. She's doing a great job. She's got six people under her right now, and she's leading
Wow.
them in a great way. So,
That's fantastic. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
You said something, Dan, about leading, if I remember correctly, leading without authority. Did I get it right?
you did.
Can you
So
do
how
you
do you
mind
do that?
speaking to that? Yeah, yeah,
How do
exactly.
you
I
do
think
that?
right.
So one of those things that we talked about was Nico, right? We put him in that position. He wanted bad to be the supervisor. So, for I think three or 6 months was like, let's see how you do. You don't have the title. You don't have that backing of, you're elevated above the whole team. Now go lead them. Go tell them how to do it. Go show them how to do it. How are you going to do it without banging your chest and saying, "Hey, I'm the boss. Go do that and do it now." So it makes it a little bit more difficult for people to understand, like the right way to lead people, right?
Hmm.
Everybody's worked for those people that, do this because I said so.
Hmm.
Not many people like it, right?
No,
So
I don't know anyone who does.
right. So, when you thrust into that position where you lead without authority, you learn other tactics. You learn other ways to get across to people that, hey, we need to do this. We need to do it the right way. We need to follow the procedure. We need to make sure that we're hitting our deadlines. We need to make sure it's efficient. But
Hmm.
I'm not a supervisor. So how do I get them to do that? And
Hmm.
and again, I think Nico did it with a lot of competitiveness, right? Like, I can do this better than you. Yeah, let's see. Let's see who does it the best and the most compliant, things like that. And he did a good job with that. And he found other ways without being a supervisor to really lead the group and move them forward in a positive manner, you
Sure.
know. And I think that that goes a long, long way. I've had the the leadership that's been, in my opinion, it's second to none, and I think you know a lot of my leaders that I've been
Of
around,
course.
and the ability for them to lead is incredible. You know, you have many, many lessons without even knowing you had a lesson. And to me,
Mm,
that is like incredible, right? And you look back and you're like, huh, wow, okay. Didn't see that one coming, but that makes total sense now, you know?
that's awesome. Yeah,
You know,
that's so it's rare to be
yeah.
able to say that in what I've seen. So when you say you've had a lesson without knowing it, is that just the experience of working with that person? Like, what do you
Um,
mean?
yeah, I think, it's happened to me a couple times. Like, my managers that I've had in the past have not given you the answer. They've led you down the path. They'll give you a couple options, and they put that little connotation on the conversation where steers you in that direction, and
Mhm,
then you make that decision. You think you made that decision, right?
mhm.
Everything turned out great, and then you look back and you're like, wait a second. Hold on, that was oh wait, look, two and two equals four. Wow, that's but it really does go a long way to put you in the position where you feel like you're in control, you feel like you're doing things, and you've got the right guidance all the way through to be where you're at, right? Without actually just telling you, go do this, go do that, go do this, go do that,
That's a
right?
great culture. Yeah,
you know
that's a really good culture
so
right there.
in my opinion, it helps you learn a lot more of the details. Instead of just going and doing this one thing, you're finding out how to do that one thing along the way, right?
Mm,
It's not just being done for you. And for me, it's a much better aspect to be able to learn that way, because you're learning the hows and the whys it's getting done, not just getting it done
love that. Love
you
that.
know so you know and it's there's a lot to learn throughout all of it, and to lead without authority, it goes a long way in teaching you how to really get the results you want without having to bang your fist, bang your chest.
Sure. Fair to say, is that when you're truly adding value, or maybe you're making someone's job or life easier?
I think it's not necessarily easier. I think it's a little bit more pain up front, because you're actually going through all those steps and you're actually fully learning what you need to learn.
Mhm.
Um, but the end result is definitely your job is 10 times easier, because
Right.
you know exactly how to do, when to do, and what to do. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
yeah, a little bit of pain up front makes the job a whole lot easier out back. You know,
Awesome.
and then growing on top of that. One of the things we talked about is helping people grow, understanding, where are we going to go? How are we going to do? What are you interested in? You
Mhm.
know, um, in some aspects, there's, developmental things that we can do. There's outside training, inside training, on the job training. You can go through all different aspects of that, but sticking to them, making sure that the milestones are being met. Let's agree upon it. Let's go through these couple things. Maybe start off on small tasks, and then go into more formal training, more on the job training. Things like that. But
Does it break down like an annual growth plan, or trying to understand how you'd actually do that, Dan? Or is it less formal?
well, in my current role, we do a formal development plan. Um, but there's also, like, some of the people outside, right? So they come from all different walks of life. Some people, have a great family background. Some people don't. Some people have had the the good fortune to have people guide them in their financial endeavors, right?
Mm,
So, the where it comes to work, it's always that formal thing where, it's about your job and it's about how we get you to grow and learn new things and become more efficient, more valuable to the company and stuff like that. But more on a personal note, how do you help them grow? Do people know about 401ks? Do they know, you know, simple things like, investing? Do they know, you know, outside of Boston area,
mm,
it's a lot cheaper, or you're just going to continue to spend, 35 to $5,000 a month on rent in the Boston area,
mm.
things like that,
Right.
weighing out that stuff. So, I think for us, it's not just on the work side, but it's also on the personal side, like we have people that are, buying new houses. There's,
That's
there's
awesome.
a subset of people here that have bought houses many times.
Mm,
How can we help you? How are you going to evaluate the house you're buying? What's your skill set? Can you work on the house by yourself, or do you need to, get something that is more conducive to your level of expertise, like buying a condo instead of a house? Things like that.
that's incredible. And you're
So.
talking about this in a work environment. And again, that is
Hmm.
so rare. That's a holistic approach on growth. That's life
hmm.
growth, like you're saying. Wow.
I think, I think we look at it as, or I look at it as, I spend probably more time with my team than I do at home. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? I'm here more than 8 hours a day.
Yep.
On the facilities realm, and you're fully aware of that you
Hmm.
don't go home and you're off the clock, it's there's
Absolutely.
always some type of emergency that comes up. There's always some type of, something that you've got to respond to, whether it's a phone call or you got to go back in and, start cleaning up water spills or, burst pipes or whatever, so, with this, that, you have your teams that you're here with all the
Hmm.
time, Why
Hmm.
wouldn't you want them to succeed in life? Why wouldn't you want them to succeed out of work? You know what I'm saying? It makes it for a better life that way, which also helps us inside, which, we can start relying on each other to help us out, when we do have issues outside of work too,
Absolutely. Yep.
So,
Very lucky. That's
well,
that's great. You just touched on something. If I could pivot slightly, Dan, and
yeah,
this whole conversation will be about people. But with communication, my mind went there because you said, we're always kind of on. We might have something that comes up at night. Like, how do you like? Are there any best practices? Because clearly you've been very successful with communication throughout the years. Can you speak to that at all? Like,
yeah.
how do you? Yeah.
You can literally like burn everybody out and keep them on the clock all the time, right? Just answer your phone whenever we call or whenever security calls or whoever's calling for that anomaly, right? But the way we've done it is we have on call rotations, and it's not just on the technician side, it's also on the management side, right? So, there's always a manager on call with the technician that's on call. So if it's something that's, a little bit more or, needs some more guidance or some help or instruction to do something, you're not alone, you know?
Mhm.
And that person can then at that point, if need to, call the bigger force. Sometimes we can do it with one or two people, but if you're talking about a solvent spill or something like that, you have to have a minimum of four people who's coming in.
Mm.
So we've got to round up all the troops and see who's readily available, who can make it, who can't, until you get the right amount of people that you need to respond accordingly.
How do you is it all phone calls? Is it text? Is it
Mm, all of the above. From
everything?
radios to text messages to emails, phone calls, whatever's available. I think a lot of our stuff we do is we have text messages, but we also have, security calling us should need be, and we have a escalation tree.
Yep.
If I'm on call, then they call me. If I don't answer, they call my boss. So we always know that there's going to be somebody that picks up and is able to back each other up.
Gotcha. Awesome.
you know. And communication, as you know, it's it's probably the lifeline of the facilities department. If we don't know what's going on, I mean, a lot of times, people that are in the facilities realm will be quick to tell you, a lot of times, a PM is completed and preventive maintenance is completed, and then,
Hmm.
a day later, something goes wrong with that piece of equipment, and it's like, oh, what happens? That communication, if we know that, we know what to look for, we know where to start, we know where to actually, start the investigation and try to hopefully mitigate something a lot earlier than, starting from I don't know anything. So communication across the board.
If I could, then, because you know who did it and you know what was done. That's what
Yep.
you're referring to. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You go
Yep.
right back to the, yep.
You know where to start, you know what to look for right at
Sure.
the beginning. It may not be that, but it's a great starting point instead of going in and, gee, what could it be? That's a big, big system,
Right. Right.
so mm,
What about, like, you're a very regulated, or at least, are you a very regulated environment? I was
it all
asking.
depends, right? It all depends, research is not as regulated. Then you get into, process science or, the upscale of whatever you're working on, which is more regulated, but not full GMP, right? And then we go into GMP where, our business spans all three zones or the three zones that I put them in, right? So we
Hmm.
have research and development, we have process sciences, and then we have manufacturing. So we span all of it where, manufacturing where everything is documented, full cleaning regime, pest control regime, and then you go down to um, the research area where it's not necessarily quality oversight on it. Still the same processes, still the same. We try to keep the same level of quality in there. We just don't have that quality oversight.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
yeah,
I'm asking you to that's great data, and I'm asking because it seems to be, over the years, I've heard so many times, like, not a sticking point, but a how to always be prepared. Like, how do you get prepared for that? You
yeah.
know, sneak visit, a surprise visit, say, or an inspection that you know is coming, but then how am I best prepared for it? And you guys seem to have that pretty well down. So I think people could learn from that.
Yeah. That all depends on what we're dealing with, right? Everybody thinks of like, oh, it's a regulated environment. That means it's the FDA or the EU, European Union.
Hmm.
Um, regulatory agency. But then we have things like MWRA. We have, our licensures for solvent loading through the city of Cambridge. There's all those regulations too. All the way down to the codes for egress, the codes for bathrooms, water fountains, all that stuff. What we try to do is maintain that all of that stuff. So if I think of one, right off the bat, the MWRA, right? MWRA is the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority, and that's where we put all of our wastewater from the labs down through a system that regulates the pH before it sends it out to the Deer Island and the sewer systems in Boston.
Hmm.
Um, we have to not only comply with the pH regulations, but we can't send it out at 150 degrees Celsius either. And then we have all of the different metals and chemicals that we have to test to make sure we're not putting down there too. So that's done on a quarterly basis, and we have to report all that out. So
Hmm.
if what we do is we have preventive maintenance plans in place for a monthly check on every part of the system. So, whether it's our binders, make sure that we have our staffing plan, our licenses are up to date, make sure our daily logs are being populated and fully vetted to make sure there's no issues, no excursions, nothing like that. And go forward, make sure that we have our permit on hand, all of that stuff.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we do it as we go along. Makes it so much easier, you know.
So,
if
yeah,
if you don't, then everything becomes a scramble, everything becomes a reaction, and everybody knows that, reactive maintenance is the worst maintenance.
Of course, it's more costly. Yeah, it's stressful. That's when we make
Absolutely.
mistakes. I
Yep,
remember,
100%.
what's that?
I said 100%. You're right.
Yeah, it's always painful. It's it's never good. I remember a mutual friend of ours who used to work for you, who's since retired, I believe. He said to me once, he goes, "Jay, there's no SOP that goes from this company to this company to this company. Nothing is consistent." So is that really true? And because you've moved the companies too.
Yeah. No, it is true. There's no set. I mean, we have good practices. And one of the things that we try to do is, standardize a lot of our stuff, but it truly is standardized to where I'm at right now is Alnylam, right? If I were at, Takeda, or I was going to, Bluebird, or, Sanofi, there would be a different set of standards. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's true. There is no standardization, and I think we've tried hard to build forums to help each other along those paths, to understand, what is the best practice, what should we be doing, what should we be focused on, how can we, share information, how can we share practices, processes, all that stuff. But not really, I don't think I've ever seen it really take off to where it's like, okay, this is the standard for biotech. This is where we're going to go
Right.
forward.
It seems crazy to, I'm not in the world like you are.
Yeah.
It seems crazy because say the FDA comes in, you would think there would be a standard, but there isn't.
Yeah, even it's all on the interpretation of the inspector, right? So,
Hmm.
and if you take the FDA inspectors, you have a different array of backgrounds with inspectors, right? You could have a microbiologist who really truly focuses on, product and the microbiology of that product and, your processes within that realm. And then you've got
Mhm.
somebody who came from, the food industry and wanted to, take a look at the process and all the different equipment that's in there. And then
Mm.
you get your inspection becomes a different realm, right? They're pulling strings on, where's your calibration, where's your validation, all of that stuff, instead of going deep down into the science, So
Mhm.
that's true. It really does all rely on, what the inspector wants to see, how they want to see it, what their interpretation of the guidelines are, and things like that, you know.
Well,
I think that's everywhere though, right, Jay? I mean,
yeah,
it's,
it is. It,
so, I could be like, in the car environment, right? I'm a
right.
big Ford guy. Well,
Hmm.
I'm a big Chevy guy. And Chevy's
Looking for some.
definitely, yeah, well, I like Toyota. The Toyota Tundra is much better than the F-150, and
Mhm.
it's, I think
Oh yeah,
everybody has their own opinions.
and they're looking through a different lens based
Yeah,
on those opinions.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
based on their background, their training, their experiences in life, right?
Mm. You know, I want to ask you this, Dan, because you have like listened to everything we've talked about so far: the people, the process, the communication, the inspections, this preparedness. How do you manage your time? Like, how do you manage time in an environment like this?
Prioritization, that's got to be first one, right? You got to be able to, prioritize what's important and what you're going to focus on. The big misnomer out there is, oh, we'll just multitask. We'll get it all done at once. Well,
Mm.
that's a misnomer. You can't multitask.
Mm-mm.
You can have projects moving in parallel, but you can't work on two projects in the same space of time. Your mind can't do two things at once.
It's physically impossible.
Yeah.
That's accurate. Yep.
So prioritizing, understanding what we need to do, what takes precedence, what timelines are where, and who you have available. For us, we're very, very fortunate. We've got a really, really great team over here. We've got people that can drive things and run things, you know, through fruition, and
Hmm.
and that's huge. You know, when you can give something to somebody and walk away and know it's going to be done and done right on the other side, you're in good hands. You're in good shape. So,
Yeah.
setting those priorities, I think, understanding you know, like where to get the information that you need, you know. For me, like, you know, if I'm going to be doing something that's outside of my realm, how do I know I'm doing the right thing? You know, getting the right people in the right places to understand you're doing the right thing and, get it done, first time right with the quality you're looking for, you know.
Sure.
So getting those partners are key, the plumbers, electricians, all of them, carpenters,
Mhm.
painters, flooring people, elevator companies, getting those people that, you know, literally are in it with you. I'm not looking for a vendor, I'm looking for a partner, to
Mhm.
understand, and a lot of that times when we have things go on here, say we have a storm and we get a roof leak and it, comes through the roof and ruins an office. It's all hands on deck, including our vendors.
Right.
There's been many times we've had electricians out here vacuuming up water on the floor,
Mm,
you know.
it's
Nobody
team
nobody
effort.
questions. We just jump in, we get it done,
Yeah.
and we'll sit back and we'll take a look at it afterwards. And, hey, did we do the right thing? What could we have done better?
Hmm.
Always taking we call it an after actions item review where, we'll take a look at the emergency power outages. What did we do? How did we do it? Did we respond the right way? Did we respond quick enough? Was the right people in the right places? Things like that. So
Awesome.
time management, though, we can go on forever for time
Oh,
management.
I know. That's
It's
why
so
I asked
hard.
you. Hmm.
It's so hard. There's
There are
never enough
more.
time in the day.
Think about the alerts we have. There's alerts everywhere on every screen we own, every beeping noise, and someone wants your attention all the time. So
Yeah.
I found it's where you say no respectfully, right? It's just priorities
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
can't multitask. Yeah.
No,
You
it's
spoke about a lot
good.
about people, and I just wanted to mention that I in a recent session, you were in the session actually. We had an OSHA training or informational session, and that OSHA trainer specifically mentioned one of your people who is an incredible electrician now, full blown, facilities guy. And that's a nice compliment for a trainer to say, yeah, it was that guy that worked here. And, it's your guy,
Yeah.
good team.
And it means everything, right? And that's what I go back to right at the beginning of the conversation. If you don't have the right people doing the right thing, then it's just not going to work.
Right.
And the guy you're talking about, you're right. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
100% vested, 100% engaged, can't ask for anybody better in a awful situation and to take charge and literally, from start to finish till it's completed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I've been on the receiving end of he's not afraid to say what needs to be said, to
Yep.
say it directly, and to say it so it still feels like a really good conversation and you learn something from it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's funny as hell. That
Yeah.
helps. That always helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And across different expertise areas, right? So it's not just
Right.
yes, electrician by trade, but
Hmm.
definitely not just an electrician.
No,
Could
no, no.
probably do every one of those those trades jobs very easily.
Better than most.
Yeah, which is great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everyone would want to know more about you, Dan. I mean, before we even do that, though, is there anything that you want to shine? Here I am firing questions at you, man.
Nah.
Anything else that you think we should talk about?
Enjoying it, enjoying it, enjoying it, enjoying it, right?
Yeah.
Every day I wake up, I'm excited to go to the office.
Mm,
And especially in this environment because there's always something that's new. There's always something that you're learning. There's always some type of issue to overcome. And when you're in an environment like that where you're consistently learning and you're consistently moving and you're all the time, growing, it's it's a great environment to be in.
again, rare,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
that's that's more the exception than the rule, unfortunately, and that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great advice.
I think it's definitely, when you got people that push you, yeah, you can do that. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yep.
I don't know. Even doing this, right? You know,
That's a
uh,
gift.
you
Hmm.
get well, you get people that are scared, and I'll go back to Diana. I hope she doesn't hear this. She probably will, but it's she came to us. She was definitely did not want to be out front of the group. She didn't want to be in that focal point, and now she leads the group in the morning meetings.
Mm,
How much is that?
that's
We
transformation.
put her outside of her comfort zone, and now she's killing it again. you know
Yeah.
it's huge, and it's really good to watch that stuff because it's rewarding, watching people grow personally, not just in the business sense, but to be able to take on different things and have that skill set to go forward is great.
Well, and I will do this for you because you won't do it for yourself. I'm going to shine the light on you, Dan, because like
Yeah.
yes, she wanted it, right? And she was also in the right environment with the right leadership. Like she had people like you just said pushing her. Like come on, go out front. Let's try it out front today.
Yeah.
Take a different look at this. So, that's just a great that's a great recipe right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think,
credit to you.
it's not just me, right? It's the environment that we're in. And I think, when you're in an environment where, it's not just go out and do it. I'll stand up front with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you bobble a little bit, I'll pick it right up. No problem.
Yeah.
And that's not just me. That's all of my leadership, top, down, and side to side. Everybody's in it together, and that's what truly makes this a great place to be part of.
It's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So let's talk about Dan. Who's Dan O'Connell, right? Like who was Dan when he was 20 years old? Like what do you want to share with us? People want to
I
know.
I think we got like 2 minutes left, and I think
We
that's
got
it
a
now.
bad connection.
Yeah. No, listen, it's we talk about that. When I was 20 years old, I was what? E4 in the Navy, just leaving Adak, Alaska on my 18-month tour out of that place, going down to Virginia, Tennessee first, you know.
Hmm. Thank
So
you again.
it's you go from that to where you are today, and it's you look back, I got two kids. I got a son that's graduating college. He's got I think six more classes left, and he's done there. I've got a daughter that just, is completing her second semester in college, and both of them made the dean's list this year, so they're doing fantastic as well. So
Congratulations to
yeah,
mom, dad, and them.
yeah, yeah. So, but you know what? And for me, I've been fortunate. Like you just said, mom, dad, and the kids. My wife has been there. Taking care of the home front while I've been at working and doing all of this stuff
Hmm.
over this side. So I definitely wouldn't have been able to do what I've been able to do without that coverage, without that support, without that encouragement on that side.
That's tremendous.
you
Yeah.
know. And for me, it was, you know, a little bit more. I also, after I got out of the Navy and started working, had the family, but also went back to school, got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree, through all of, I think it took me 20 plus years to do it, but
You did it.
I got it done,
You did it.
so, but yeah, it's I have got had a lot of memories, a lot of fun with them, Boy Scout leader, my wife was a Girl Scout leader, all of that stuff. It was a lot of fun.
As I remember, you were super
Yeah.
engaged with the scouts too. When I talked to you, you're like, yeah, we were ready for the weekend camping. We were doing this, we're doing that. You're always active, very active with
Yeah.
it.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not too unhappy that we're not, camping every month of the year now.
Freezing in a bag.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you get a little older and you're like, yeah, let's go to the beach. Let's not go to the mountains. We'll leave that for the summertime, So yeah,
That's
but it's
awesome, man.
it's been fun. It's been a long trek. I'm fortunate to have my daughter right down the street. We work in Kendall Square, and my daughter's right near Fenway, one of the colleges of Fenway. So, I get to see her every now and then. She'll come by, more for a free meal and a
Right.
little bit of extra spending money. But
She wants to see you.
yeah, it's always nice. Whatever brings her here,
That's fair.
So
I'm sorry, what year is she in?
it's freshman.
She's a
Yeah,
freshman. Awesome.
yeah, yeah. Yep, my son stayed at home and commuted, and she wanted to do the whole, living in Boston bit. So
Mhm.
it's been great.
Good for her. Good for her.
Yeah,
Well,
good
after
stuff.
all this discussion, was that it?
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, so maybe people want to get in touch with you. I mean, you just laid
Yeah,
down a lot of information here. You shared a lot of like wisdom from the field and, any field really. How can people get in touch with you?
yeah. I'm
What
on
would you,
LinkedIn. My
okay?
LinkedIn is there. You can post it on the podcast. Um, you know, um, Actually, on my LinkedIn page is all my contact information, my cell phone number, and my email. So I'm more than happy to help out wherever I can. You
Perfect.
know,
Perfect.
it's not just about, us and moving our stuff forward. It's also, the collective group, like we do with you, getting into, how do we respond to different alarms? How do we build procedures? How do we, I'm not about, redesigning the wheel. Here you go. Here it is. Utilize it. Slap a new name on it and call it a day.
Someone else has already figured it out. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
You don't get extra credit for thinking about it, right? You execute it well.
That's it.
Uh,
Well put.
Dan, I'm very,
Yeah.
very grateful that you spent the time, man. And, hey, knowing you 10 plus years, I mean, it's just been awesome. Thank you so much for, sharing this time with us.
Yeah,
And
it's good.
appreciate it very much. Hopefully, everyone listening learned something today. And, if you laughed or learned, then, hey, pass it along. And Dan, we'll talk very soon, my friend.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Jay.
It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.